Welcome, everyone, to this virtual space and the launch of a new resource collection at Common Word called Together in Hope. Sandy Plett, Mennonite Church Canada's Climate Action Coordinator, has shepherded the curation of this collection, helped orchestrate this event, and invited a wonderful contingent of contributors and younger voices who have a part in this project and in the conversation. Special welcome to Carolyn Regier, Jonathan Sealing, Matthew Braun, Leah Reeser-Keller, Kayana Ellis, Felix and Caleb Martins Bartel, Adeline Paul, and Liesel Retzlaff. My name is Arlen. I am zooming in from Treaty 1 territory. We acknowledge together that we meet on the sacred lands of First Nations, Indigenous, and Métis peoples, lands either unceded or under treaty. We make this acknowledgement and respect for the host peoples who have for millennia stewarded these bioregions and watersheds and continue to love and care for the land and waters. We are grateful. We commit ourselves to greater learning and the pursuit of a justice that leads to reconciliation. I am the director of Common Word, a national Anabaptist bookstore and resource center operated by Canadian Mennonite University and Mennonite Church Canada. We are pleased to be hosting this event tonight and pleased certainly to see all of you, both from near and far. I invite you, if you feel comfortable, to send a chat message, as some of you are doing, with your name and general location so we have a sense of who is joining us. Tonight's conversation is being recorded and will live on Common Word's website, commonword.ca, and be available to folks unable to be here in real time. So I welcome future viewers as well. I have muted each of your mics so that there's no audio interference. Please keep them muted. If you need to be in touch with me or have a question or general comment for one of our presenters, please use the chat function. I will try to be monitoring that. And toward the end of the evening, there will be a question and response time. Sandy Plett and I are colleagues at Mennonite Church Canada. I really appreciate Sandy's passion for the critical work we all must engage during our present climate emergency. I value her strong wish for good conversation and networking as we do this work, this important work together. I'm grateful for the group she has invited tonight. And I am encouraged by her persistent message of hope. Welcome, Sandy. I invite you to introduce this project furder.
Thank you so much, Arlen. I am very excited to be here with all of you. And yeah, I just want to say, first of all, thanks for coming tonight. And thank you to those who helped build this collection. Arlen has already named the names, and you'll hear them again in a little bit. And thank you to those of you who are coming to hear about it tonight and who are going to share it across the country and all over the place. I'm excited already about the ripple effect of our time together and of this work. So I'll just introduce myself a little bit. My role at Mennonite Church Canada is Climate Action Coordinator, and I have the privilege of meeting with folks from across the country who are faithfully responding to the climate crisis. And these responses take a lot of forms. And I am fortunate to be invited to encourage and engage with all kinds of different ways that people are responding to the climate crisis. This particular collection was, the seeds of this collection were sown in March of 2023, which is just under a year ago, when the topic of supporting youth to engage in the climate crisis came up at a meeting of regional working group leaders. There are working groups in each of the regions of Mennonite Church Canada that are working at climate and creation care. And what we agreed on that was that the church needs to engage with the climate crisis And that a first step might be to put together not a first step, lots of things are happening, but a step that we could take collectively might be to provide some resources to support whatever we do next. And it was super exciting to work with a handful of parents on this project, people who are also keenly hoping that the church responds to the climate crisis with open eyes, open ears, and open hearts to the younger generations as they walk with us into a changed and uncertain future. I'm just going to read a little piece from the introduction to the collection, and you can find that. Arlen will show you later where this is. Children and youth in our communities need the adults in their lives to demonstrate clearly that we care about their future. We can do this by proactively and wisely addressing the dominant story of their lives and of our time, the many implications of the climate crisis. Our response needs to include listening and spiritual care, along with demonstrations of care through fearless and visible action that shows that we are ready to stop going with the flow and are ready to stand up to the dangerous status quo that has led humanity to this point. My hope and prayer is that the spirit of action and dialogue will spill out of this effort and into homes and church hallways and classrooms and sanctuaries and parks and playgrounds and campgrounds, and that together and hope becomes more than just a catchphrase, but a felt reality for all the generations together. The majority demographic, us adults, have been known to say things like, I'm glad the youth are taking leadership, or it's a good thing the youth are working on this. But to be honest, the climate crisis is not the kind of thing one generation can deal with on everyone's behalf. This is future altering stuff, and we got to walk together. All generations, all walks of life. This is our shared path. And here we are together. So let's do it. Let's walk together in hope. Go ahead, Arlen.
Yes, I'm just looking for the right buttons to press. Thanks, Sandy. Let me just take a couple of minutes now at the beginning to share my screen and give you a quick orientation to the collection, which is at commonword.ca, and how you can access it. And I'll put the link in the chat so that it's there for your reference. Let me just share my screen here. And does everyone see that screen? Okay, so this is our homepage at commonword.ca. You have the direct link to the collection in the chat, commonword.ca/go/3698. But if you don't have that link, you would go to commonword.ca to the website and search Together in Hope and select the matching subject. And that will bring you to the landing page here. Together in Hope is a curated collection. You see that there are 64 results. These are 64 resources of a variety of kinds that have been curated and collected and put into this special collection. You'll also see that because it's housed at Common Word, it's part of a larger set of collections on similar topics like climate change and action, creation care, creation and creativity, Creation Care Sunday, and Earth Day. Each of those links draws you into further resources as well. The description here, I'll just read an excerpt. This collection of resources, Together in Hope, includes books for you, the adult, and books to read to and with your children and young folks. It includes activities, podcasts, websites, and educational resources to help you gain skills, vocabulary, and courage so that you can walk together with your young people into the unknowns of the future as companions, guides, and caregivers by listening carefully and talking openly. The bottom of this description, there is a section called Start Here with several links on the general background on climate, the background on the church's response to the climate crisis, and several resources and places to begin. In addition to that, there are a number of different access points to the collection. Start here would relate to some of these same resources that are found here, in addition to some others. Jump in, learn more, and deep dive. Each of those are filtered subsets of this collection that you can use and enter into the material, depending on your familiarity, your interest, and potential level of engagement. So for instance, let's just select Jump In. And here there are 28 of those 64, was it, resources that the curators cataloged as easily accessible. And Common Word's catalog is designed to allow you to filter any list based on your interests or needs. So if you look at the sidebar under the filters, if you're looking to buy a resource, if you were looking to borrow a resource, if you're looking for a digital resource to access online, these are other ways to filter these 28 resources. If you're interested in fiction, games and activities, biographies, or handbooks, if you're looking for a novel or story or an illustrated picture book or music, under audience, you see that there are 15 resources in this category, the subset for children, 14 for adults, some for youth, and others for leaders, and so on. And finally, there's several ways to access the resources themselves. So a resource like this, think about single-use plastic, the Bible study is downloadable. A resource like I Hear You Forest is available to borrow and to buy. Just a reminder that anywhere within Mennonite Church Canada and within the country of Canada, borrowed items ship free of charge both ways. So it's a very simple way to have access to items that are for loan. You get a return label that's prepaid. You just put that on the package and it gets shipped back to us at no cost. There are things like the MCC Climate Action for Peace, which you may visit, which means you enter their website. You can read the 7 songs about climate change online. And finally, something like the Peace Table is available to borrow, it's available to buy. There's a preview, there's a webinar to watch, and also an interview to listen. And so resources come in all shapes and sizes and different access points. This is Together in Hope. And we hope that this whets your appetite a little bit to discover more of these resources on your own time. Sandy.
Perfect. Thank you so much for walking us through that, Arlen. I hope you've all bookmarked the link so that you can go back to it later and walk through it for the pieces that catch your eye. But for now, we're going to go on to our guests. I am delighted to have 2 groups of guests here tonight to help launch this collection. You can probably tell how excited I am. The first group are the wonderful new friends who spent time with me from September to December, starting with setting a vision for what this collection might be and moving through to the nitty-gritty of sorting through possible inclusions. These are my heroes. I've asked each of them to do the impossible, which is to introduce themselves and to tell you why it mattered to them to help build this collection and to share a short quote from one of the resources. The reason that's impossible is because I gave them each 3 minutes. So I took one little piece out. I'm going to introduce them so they don't need to do that. Yeah, they got 3 minutes each to give you what's important to know. So I am happy to introduce Carolyn Regier, Jonathan Sealing, Matthew Braun, and Leah Reeser-Keller in this first section. Thank you for joining us today. And Carolyn, we will start with you, and that's the order we'll go. Carolyn, Jonathan, Matthew, and Leah. So let me introduce Carolyn, and then you will be up. Carolyn Regier loves biking. She just started a new hobby, which is sewing patches on her kids' pants that have holes in them. which is she's finding out this is an endless hobby, and enjoys going on adventures with her family. She and her family, which is her partner Chris and children Lucas and Daniel, go to Hope Mennonite Church in Winnipeg, Manitoba on Treaty 1 territory. The community at Hope has been a place where she has been able to learn, grow, and contribute to climate action. Carolyn's love for the earth runs deep, and she is committed to caring for it. She believes in taking personal and collective action to ensure a sustainable and livable future for our children. She recently started a small business called Prairie Crew Adventures, and maybe we'll throw a link in the chat later. And her mission is to help families get out into nature, to get kids passionate about the outdoors, and to grow a love and appreciation for nature in the next generation to take care of the earth. You can follow along on her Instagram account at Prairie Crew, or find her on the internet at Prairie Crew Adventures. I'll throw those in the chat. prairiecrewadventures.ca. So Carolyn, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn. Okay, 3 minutes. Let's see if I can do this. I love God and nature, and I want to be part of the care for creation and our earth, and not the destruction of it. I strongly resonate with this quote by Autumn Peltier. One day I will be an ancestor, and I want my descendants to know I used my voice so that they could have a future. When my children were born, I became more aware about the climate crisis, and I wanted to take action and educate my children. But I didn't know how or where to start or what to do or what to say to babies or even little kids. I spent a lot of time and research finding this. I found people around me. So my church was just an incredible place for me to learn. And I found lots of different resources that included websites and books and podcasts and webinars that were all able to guide me along the path to climate action and climate hope with my children. The resources that have been put together in Together for Hope are a great collection of resources for you and your family. A collection I wish I had when I first started out, because it would have, I think, made things a lot easier. And so I'm so thankful, Sandy, that you have led the way to so that we can have at our fingertips a collection where families can learn, engage, think, and be brave and act in hope. So I'll be reading from a book here. It's called How to Talk to Your Kids About the Climate Change, Turning Angst into Action. And it's by Harriet Sugarman. So I have 3 quotes that I'd like to share and that I really appreciated. So the first one: each morning for a moment, as I gaze intently at my sleeping children's resting in blissful peace, I'm refilled with a resolve and hope. I remind myself that it is my job to secure a safe and livable future for them, and to ensure that they have the opportunity to grow into adults, to fight for their future as I now fight for my own and theirs. Yet a game of chance is underway with my children's future and ultimate prize. Our house is literally on fire, from the Amazon to the Arctic Circle. We can smell the smoke and we can see the flame. There is still time to put this fire out, to save at least some of our belongings and maybe even the house itself. But we must act now. We are out of time. And my next quote. We know our planet is currently getting sicker, and our planet is indeed precarious. But remind your children and yourself that many people do understand this and are working every day to develop solutions to slow down the changes we have put in motion. Regardless of their ages, do remind your children that, as a result of the crisis we face, there is an infinite number of opportunities that can and will help our planet begin to heal. Envisioning the future is a critical step to creating it. Once you can see it, talk to your kids about envisioning this future together. Regularly discuss the many ways and opportunities open to your child that will help jumpstart the creation of the future they want. This will help take away some of the fear and build up active hope. And my last quote. Find time to be together with your children in nature. There is nothing like touching, feeling, and being in nature to remind us how precious and special our planet is, and why we must strive to keep her healthy and safe. Even as infants, many of our children seem drawn to other species. They easily feel a connection, a love, and a fascination. As they grow older, in their own words and ways, they often express worry about species and biodiversity loss, and the need to protect all things wild. Discussing nature, biodiversity, and wild animals, and interweaving stories with reasons and ways to protect our natural habitat and species, other than our own, is a powerful way to share the climate story in a non-threatening and motivational way. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol. And if you want to put the title of that book in the chat, then later people can find it on Together and Hope. Haha. Matthew Braun is next. Matthew lives in Osler, Saskatchewan, where he and his partner Julie Bergen and their children Nora and Emmett attend Osler Mennonite Church. Matthew works as a professional agrologist with the Nature Conservancy of Canada, where he, in partnership with many people, works to conserve wild places in Canada. Matthew, you're up.
Hello, folks. I would like to start by expressing my gratitude to Sandy and the rest of the group for being a part of this. It's humbling to meet such wonderful people that have thought about this topic so much and put so much work into it. And so I want to thank them for, I feel like I'm along for the ride. This is an important topic to me and has been for quite some time. I attended what was then Canadian Mennonite Bible College back in the day. That's where I met Sandy there, and actually quite a few other people on the call here. Wonderful people who have influenced my life, and that time and those experiences and those courses there really did influence my life and my decisions and my perspectives. It was an opportunity to kind of apply my faith and my culture to the problems and the perspectives on life around me. And when I left the glory of college and went out into the world, I tried to take that perspective with me as best I could to challenge the way I wanted to do my life and my relationships, and try and live and work out my faith and those new perspectives. And for me, that turned into a combination of always wanting to work in the agriculture industry, but wanting to have it be meaningfully informed by what I saw happening in the world. Not just environmental, but social justice issues as well that were an important part of that enlarged perspective in college there. The tools that we're developing here and that we're bringing together for this resource are really important because of their diversity and all the different types of tools and all the different age ranges there. The resource that I wanted to read from today is called Braiding Sweetgrass, and it's by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it really speaks to me because she is a botanist, an Indigenous botanist who has explored the world around her, not only from understanding how the plants and the people interact, but also how those things affect her culture and her religion. And I think that's important to me as well. And so the bit that I wanted to read from Robin's book is from a chapter called Goldenrod and Aster. And it is not the way I was born and was raised, but I feel like at some point in my work on the native prairie in Saskatchewan, I had my eyes opened, maybe not as wonderfully as she describes here, but I'll let her do some talking here. So from Braiding Sweetgrass. I like to imagine that they were the first flowers I saw over my mother's shoulder as the pink blanket slipped away from my face and their colors flooded my consciousness. I've heard that early experience can attune the brain to certain stimuli so that they are processed with greater speed and certainty, so that they can be used again and again, so that we can remember. Love at first sight. Through cloudy newborn eyes, their radiance formed the first botanical synapses in my wide-awake newborn brain, which until then had encountered only the blurry gentleness of pink faces. I'm guessing all eyes were on me, a little round baby all swaddled in bunting, but mine were on goldenrod and asters. I was born to these flowers, and they came back for my birthday every year, weaving me into our mutual celebration. So I'd encourage you to read that book. It's a great exploration of the world around us, and I think it gives us the knowledge and kind of the emotional tug that we need to do this important work that are in all these different resources and that are within us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. That was beautiful. You can put the title and the author in the chat too, and that'll help people out. Great choice. I skipped over Jonathan just because his text was a little smaller in my document, but we'll go. Jonathan is next. Jonathan Sealing was raised near Waterloo, is currently in Niagara and a member at First Mennonite Church in Vineland. He works as a translator and a publisher with Gelassenheit, where they are working on new titles related to eco-spirituality alongside other Mennonite Anabaptist publications. Jonathan.
Thanks so much. I'm actually glad I'm third because already the two of you have shared so much. I'll just sort of keep piggybacking on that. Before I begin, I want to say that the tree that that you see in the on the banner was made by my mom. It's a quilt that is meant to sort of symbolize different seasons. And as we were thinking of a theme and something to kind of symbolize that, we thought of bringing the generations together, that some of us are sort of in the springtime of our lives, and then others are more in the fall, winter, and all of us are part of the same tree. And so thank you, Jeanette Sealing, my mom, for letting us use that. Also, because family is so important for all these things, at the end I'll be reading from my sister's book, Plant a Seed of Peace. But first I want to say about climate anxiety and the crisis. So I have a son who's 14 years old, and I remember when I was that age, the thing that many of us were anxious about was nuclear annihilation. And it's funny, you know, it's just coming up in the news again with global politics, but I don't think people think about that as much these days, at least from what I hear from some of the youth that I've worked with, and also my son. It really is this general feeling of where is this world going to, and what's it coming to, in a way that I didn't experience. And for me, some of the resources in this collection, I think, are really important for looking at the question of how we connect with God in nature. So for me, as a teenager, I think I came to know God in a new, profound, unique way, being in deep nature and having a sort of deep connection with God through nature, through like being away from it all. And that's an experience that I don't think enough people are able to have these days. There maybe aren't opportunities for everybody. But I think that that's profoundly important for us as a church and for families and for youth, especially, that that one of the very first steps we need to take is just to go out into nature, like rather than sitting in our homes and thinking like in front of our computers, how do we solve this crisis, to simply go outside. I have friends who describe themselves as indoor cats. They say, I know you love the outdoors, but I'm more of an indoor cat. And I think that as much as we can, and sorry, if you grew up on a farm, you know that there's indoor cats and there's outdoor cats, but for any of us to know that we also need to, in order to grasp what the problem means of the climate crisis, we need to be outdoor cats. And doing that with other people, I think, is profoundly important. About the Anabaptists, so just one quick little thing about some of our 500-year-old heritage and how our connection with eco-spirituality, we'll say, in modern day language. some of the work that I've been doing recently on translating texts that have sat in German for 500 years, um, there's this concept of the inner word that many of them talked about. And the inner word, yes, we read it in scripture, but we also read the inner word in creation, that God has put out creation and spoken through it, and that we are actually part of, you know, that word being spoken, but that in all ways it's an inner word that we're looking after. And I think I'm probably out of time, but I just wanted to read something that this is actually not a collection of stories that are all about ecology. Some of them are about food, and they're all about stories of justice. But my sister is a great writer of has sort of a Dr. Seuss lilt to it. So this part is just this for me speaks to the way in which we can come together and be united in this task, and that the task is working with God in the garden. That we all have different tasks, or all different ways we can work together. So we have different gifts. Our jobs aren't the same. We're workers for God, not fortune or fame. We're God's garden workers. We plant and we hoe. We tend the whole garden and watch our seeds grow. So plant a small garden and care for your plants and guard them from weeds, from aphids and ants. Use your gifts well, take a good look around. Get your shovel and hoe and dig up some ground, or water, or weed, or encourage some others to plant their own seeds. Help your sisters and brothers. The more seeds you plant, the more plants will grow. So get working with God and let your gifts show. So I know, as many of us think, what can we do? Many churches are thinking those terms. I would really encourage people to just sort of think step A or step one, get out into nature. And I think reading that inner word in nature will orient us. And then one last thing, I'm going to put in the chat an article from CBC this last week, the series they do called What on Earth. It has an article from Simon Fraser University, which maybe someone else is going to refer to, but it actually talks about specifically religion and climate anxiety and different things that are being done by Christians, Buddhists. And those, I think, are some really excellent examples. So I'll just throw that into the chat right now, and I'll stop talking so fast and let somebody else go. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. I love that poetry of that book. Super. And yeah, throw the title of that one in the chat too for us.
Okay.
Leah Reeser Keller lives on the Haldimand Tract in Kitchener, Ontario with her spouse Luke and 2 kids. She serves as interim executive director with Kairos Canada. She is an elder at Herb Street Mennonite Church in Waterloo. Her first book, Tending Tomorrow, Courageous Change for People and Planet, will be published in June with Herald Press. Very exciting stuff. There it is. She's got an image it's blurring. Yes, we're looking forward to Tending Tomorrow. So take it away, Leah.
Thank you, Sandy. Writing a book has been a really special and sacred opportunity for me to dig deep into a lot of the resources that are in the collection. And I'm honored that my book is part of this collection too. One of the pieces, so a lot of my book, it's not about how do we fix things, it's about how are we going to be in this future and how are we going to be together. In this book called All We Can Save, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis, I was really inspired by the author's statement that the climate crisis is a leadership crisis, that really it's not that we don't have technical solutions like we do. What's really at stake is who's making decisions, what are the values at play, what are the cultures that have led us to this place. Because I think oppression of people and oppression of the planet are interconnected, and that we have to go back to look at the roots of faith and culture to think about how to move forward in a different way that's making sure that every voice is at the table and that we're living in a different way. So I want to read for you an excerpt from my book. You are some of the very special people who get to hear this because the book is actually going to be published. It will be out in the world at the end of June, but you get this sneak preview now. To move forward with courageous change toward a reconciled, interconnected, flourishing, livable future for all, including non-human life, we must tell a different story, one of finding meaning in our dependency, not our domination of the natural world of which we are a part. By pulling these threads together of Indigenous ways of understanding interconnection, of queer theology's understanding of the richness and intricacy of the space between binary categories, of my own awakening to the limitations of the creation story I inherited, I work to weave a different story, one that will fill the spaces of my life, my community, and the beliefs I pass on to my children and future generations. The story I will tell my son Isaac and my daughter Ava as she gets older about what it means to be human will be a story that puts us in the middle of creation. Not middle as in center, but middle as in surrounded and embraced on all sides. We'll sit on the glacier-formed granite slopes of a backcountry campsite in northern Ontario. It will be late at night, at least 10, maybe 11, if they can stay awake that long after bedtime, as we wait for the daylight to dissolve into the black canvas of night sky. Remember this, I will say as we lean back on the cool stone ledge beneath us to see the stars emerging in their multitudes. Remember that you are a miraculous creation of earth and stardust amid a universe of miraculous creations, and that you are no more miraculous than any other. We have a duty to care for this world, to live in harmony in ways that allow others, human and beyond, to flourish too. And it is by living together well that all of us thrive together. How amazing, I will tell them. How amazing to be not the center of this universe, but an interconnected element in it, living in joy and gratitude for the divine goodness that sustains our shared life on this planet.
Thank you so much, Leah.
Leave that there.
Sorry, I interrupted you. That's beautiful. Make sure you put the title and the author in the chat for us. I feel honored to have caught a sneak peek. Thank you, Carolyn, Jonathan, Matthew, and Leah for all your work in putting this together and for your sharing now. I mentioned earlier that I'd invited 2 groups of guests to this launch, and I'm so happy to introduce the second group now. And group number 2, thank you for being patient. This collection is about opening our ears, eyes, and hearts to walk better across generations as we respond to the climate crisis. And as we built the collection, I became keenly aware that the voice that is missing from the collection so far is the voice of the younger generations. I don't know if I'd call it ironic, but I definitely think this collection is not finished without adding, no, it's not ironic. I don't know why I said that. It's not finished without adding younger voices to this conversation. So I am very grateful today to Kayana Ellis, Felix and Caleb, Martin Spartel, Adeline Paul, and Lisa Retzlaff for being part of the conversation this evening. You will meet these 5 new friends in a minute, but let me tell you the impossible task I set before them. I asked these folks to respond to the question, and it may have been worded a little different, so don't panic if this doesn't sound exactly like what I gave you, but roughly, why does it matter to me that the church takes action in response to the climate crisis? I am so curious to hear your thoughts on this, my friends. Thank you for opening your hearts to share with us tonight. We will start with Kayana Ellis from Waterloo North Mennonite in Mennonite Church, Eastern Canada. And I'll introduce each of you when your turn comes, but it will be Kayana, then Felix and Caleb, then Adeline, and then Lisa. So Kayana, you are up first.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I've had a couple Wi-Fi issues, so just let me know if this doesn't work for some reason, but I'll just start. Oh,
We can hear you.
okay.
Go
Sorry.
go for it. Maybe your camera will go on and off, but just go for it.
Okay. Well, as you said, my name is Kyan Ellis. I live near Elmira, Ontario, and I'm a part of MCEC. Now, in my response to the question, I fondly recall how environmental concerns have, since I can remember, demanded my attention. This is fondly because I've acquired a passion to stand up for these things and share them with my family and friends, which for me has been very enjoyable. Unlike many people around the world, I have found it difficult to dissociate myself from the constant stress of impending ecosystem collapse, however. In elementary school, I started a fundraiser for endangered species, which donated around $500 to conservation efforts. I sold endangered animal paintings that I painted on cards at my rural school of barely 200 students in a town of barely 200 people. I raised money for planting trees later and signed a large amount of environmentally advantageous petitions. I even joined several organizations fighting climate change, though none of them ended up fitting with my lifestyle. Regardless of these actions, our climate has warmed. We have broken heat records in just a couple weeks past. Now more than ever, countries less directly affected by climate change are experiencing tangible impacts. One girl in rural Canada doesn't make much of a difference, it seems. As a global community, we will not progress in any universal goal as individuals. This has been made apparent to me and to others jaded by the constant barrage of negativity from the news. Alone, we feel unable to make any difference in a system multitudes greater than ourselves. Helpless. But this hopelessness can be conquered. Humans are made to be resilient as a community. We are wired to reinforce the actions of a group and therefore enforce group action. Together we are strong. Together we have hope. But it is apparent that community can be hard to find. It is easier to feel alone and isolated than loved and a part of something bigger than ourselves. Community is needed to create a force behind a cause unimpeded by hopelessness, but it first needs to be found. We are here today because of the church. We are here because there is a system of community founded in the expressions of love and hope and joy that is open and ready to facilitate the action we desperately need to face the inaction of the global population. Church is a place where fighting for our future can be fostered. It matters as a community where people can be resilient to contrarian belief and stand together, united under a common goal. If united, we can put force behind our thinking. Church serves as a foundation of unity that, if used as a community for climate change activists, allows us to imagine a future where warm weather isn't a sign of impending doom. Our churches and our installations of community are the front line in our fight. Church matters to me as it means there is a system in place we can use to create continuous change. We must discuss and deliberate to our best ability for actions towards our future as a collective force, not as an individual. As a young person who has not had the life experience to jade me against hope for the future, I call on our communities found in the church. I call on us together to facilitate united action that will change the world for the better in hope. With all my being, I hope for the world to get better. And in the church, I see a way for this to happen, for us to facilitate change together, united, resilient. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm a little bit speechless, but yes, thank you for that, for opening your heart to us and challenging us. Felix and Caleb, it's your turn. Felix and Caleb Martins-Bartel are from North Star Mennonite in Mennonite Church, Saskatchewan. And we're super excited to have you here. There they are. You're up.
Hello, my name is Felix, and this is my younger brother Caleb, and we live on a small-scale mixed farm near Lanigan, Saskatchewan, and we go to North Star Mennonite Church in Drake. So a little bit of our farm, we have pigs, cows, chickens, and we do lots of gardening. So my answer to the question why it matters that we talk about the climate change in our church was if people want to keep living on the earth, we can't just destroy it and destroy the ozone layer. So we gotta stop emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So some ways that we could help stop that is solar panels. Lots of churches have large roofs, so there's lots of room to put solar panels up. You also have more fundraisers and raise money for environmental organizations, or do tree planting. So yeah, really it's just so we should set examples because everybody's kind of hoping that somebody else start something big and stop the climate change, but we as a church have to set an example for the world. So yeah, do you have anything else to add?
So again, like as we're talking about how we should talk about how it matters to take action about climate cancers, as a Christian, I would say as like God put us on this earth and put us here to be caretakers of this earth, and currently we are not doing much of caretaking it. So we need to talk about it more and learn about it more in church, and we could start stuff like Felix was saying, and also like often in our church we were talking about how we love God's creation and that of earth. If we do, that means we should really be taking care of this planet. And as much as we are talking about it in school and lots of other places, we don't talk about it enough at church. So we just should really start doing it, because we don't often see churches that are like, you can tell that they care a lot about the climate change. And so, because currently we are in a climate crisis and we need to be part of helping solve this big problem about climate change. And there's things like, we could even use like the golden rule as an example of ways to take, as like meaning to take care of the earth, as like the golden rule is treat others the way that you would like to be treated. So what think that like the earth is another person, so treat them how you would like to be treated.
That's all, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's all we have to share. So back to you, Sandy.
Thank you so much, guys. I really want to come and visit your farm now. Thank you for the challenge. And yeah, it's time for the church to get on it. You're right. All right. Adeline Paul from Home Street Mennonite Church in Manitoba. Adeline, you're up.
Hello. So, as I was thinking about the question of why it matters to me that the church is not silent about climate and environmental concerns, there were sort of three thoughts that came to mind. The first is that as a Mennonite, and as we are people that follow God, we are called to live in love, respect, and to care for each other. And this includes caring for the environment. By caring for the environment, we are caring for each other, especially since the effects of climate change don't impact us as much as it does people in other places. And so I think about the stories I've heard of the increasing frequency and severity of floods in other countries that have wiped away homes, wiped away the people's ability to live and to survive and to live as a human on this earth. This sort of leads into the second thought, which is that I care deeply for all creatures, and it can get very sad and overwhelming when hearing about all of the many horrible things that are happening in this world. And it includes things like the loss or severe damage of an ecosystem because of deforestation and other reasons. An example closer to home for me is thinking about where we're getting our water from in Winnipeg and how that's impacted Indigenous communities. And those stories aren't always acknowledged, and that has affected Indigenous communities and the nature around them, because two things are often really closely tied together. And the third thought is that to see the church speak up and provide ways and opportunities of getting involved means so much to me. To connect with my community as we work for a better environment is amazing, and it's beautiful. And this provides hope to myself and to the people around me, encouraging all of us to keep finding paths forward, and that this journey does not need to be walked alone. We need to know that we can reach out and find support from each other and walk in hope together to change the world and to live in a different way that's good and caring for all around us. Those are kind of my thoughts.
Well, those are pretty good kind of thoughts. Thanks, Adeline. Thanks for the challenge and for taking us through where your heart took you when you considered the question. Last, we have Lisa Retzlaff from Foothills Mennonite in Mennonite Church, Alberta. Lisa.
Hello. Yeah, I'm from Calgary, Alberta. Currently I'm in BC though for school. Yeah, and this is a topic that I really like to talk about and something that's really close to my heart. I believe that churches are in a position of power and community and have many resources that they can bring together to support this climate issue. And I think that they have the potential to make a really big difference in it. The community allows for change and gives people hope to keep going and fighting when the climate crisis can be a really hard and sad topic to grapple with. Talking about climate change and the environment in the church can engage voices from younger and older generations, which we've seen today. And that really creates just strong relationships and really supportive communities. I have watched this kind of happen, and it's definitely a community that is really close to me now, and has a special place in my heart. And I don't think that my faith would be where it was at today if I didn't have that opportunity to be involved with the church and creation care. I found myself in a role with Mennonite Church Alberta in a creation care working group which has just grown my faith in many different ways. And I want to thank all of the people that have helped with that. And yeah, spent time talking about it and learning together and sharing the impacts that creation has had on us as Christians. I think that as Christians, we are called to care for creation. God gave it to us and we should care for it and be really mindful of that. And I think that should be a priority in our lives. So I think we need to be taking the opportunity to set that as an example as disciples and stand up for justice around this issue and show others, yeah, that we're called to become caretakers of the earth.
Thanks, Liesl. And as Liesl mentioned, she is part of the Creation Care Working Group in Mennonite Church, Alberta. It's the youngest of the 5 working groups across Mennonite Church Canada. And I'm super pumped that Liesl is doing that work with Charlene Lozier and a few others, young adults from Mennonite Church, Alberta and their community. So hooray. Thank you so much. I just feel so honored to share this space with all of you. So if I say too much about it, I'll start to cry. But I want to open the floor for questions and comments from the room. So you've heard what you need to hear. Let's just take a few minutes. If there are any comments or questions, Arlen maybe can watch for raised hands. And yeah, you can ask a question of any of the panelists. Or of me or Arlen. But if you have questions about how to use the resource specifically, you can also check in with Arlen at Common Word anytime about that. So go for it. Any questions or comments from the room? You can unmute or you can raise your hand, or don't just raise your hand like this though, because I won't necessarily see you, but you can use the raise hand function or just start talking.
Well, since no one else is going, I just wanted to say I'm really happy that this resource exists, and I'm really excited to hear all the energy in this virtual room. And yeah, thanks everyone. Really happy to see this happening. That's all.
Thanks, Joanne.
I also wanted to say thank you to you, Sandy, for allowing me to have this opportunity to share with everybody. And this is a really amazing thing you and others put together. So thank you so much.
I think that was kind up, and you are so welcome. And I'm so grateful to have met you through this process. This is fantastic. And it will be not the last time that we talk.
Sounds good to me.
This is Jonathan here. I would just like to say a thank you to Joanne Moyer for popping up and saying a word, because if anyone should be here talking in place of me, I mean, it would have been great to have you as part of this, but since this group here is gathered, I just want to say a big thanks to you for coming to our church, Vineland, for the whole weekend. Joanne Moyer gave her just a huge waterfall of wisdom into flooded us with all these things. We're going to be trying to figure out what to do with that, but I would just say for any congregations out there who would like somebody with her background, we were just amazed at what she brought, both in terms of university knowledge and biblical knowledge together, and the sensitivity of talking to a congregation. So thanks, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Joanne is part of the Sustainability Leadership Group for Mennonite Church Canada and is a leader in sort of researching what Mennonites are doing around climate and creation care right now. She's in the middle of a whole bunch of research and teaching and all that good stuff. Any other comments or questions?
I wanted to note I was just really grateful to hear from the younger folks on the call today, and thanks for your courage and your willingness to share. And what really stood out to me as a common theme was a sense of like, we're not alone, we do it together, and that church can be a place where we come together and we work on this together. And there's just so much hope there. So thanks for sharing that.
Yes, Leah, thank you for naming that. Well, Arlen, how long do we wait for comments?
It's been a good evening. And I too echo what Leah just said on appreciation for everyone's contribution tonight, but especially those of you who we have spoken about about the role the church plays and the significance of acting together, and that this is both a privilege but a major responsibility. So thanks, Sandy, for bringing us all together, and thank you for your engagement, everyone. Thank you for attending, for being committed to this conversation, and not just a conversation, but now conversations that lead to further action. As we face an uncertain future in a changed climate, and as younger generations walk with the reality that their entire lives will be shaped by this crisis, may we not despair, but join together in faith, hope, and action as companions, advocates, provocateurs, caregivers, listeners, and Christ's disciples. May this collection, Together in Hope, help serve the church to be a faithful witness, a truthful conscience, and an active participant in our common journey. May we all be stirred by God's Spirit, and may we live in God's hope. Thank you for coming. Peace to each of you, and good night.